Yes, one other element for 2021 is that the continued search for income will be necessary for all investors to innovate by using multiple asset classes in combination to achieve their income goals. Whether we look in the United States, in Asia, or in Europe, yields and high coupons are very hard to come by, and therefore income and growth and similar will be critical for an asset allocation in 2021. When we look forward, there's a lot to be potentially excited about. News of the several companies, whether it be Moderna, Pfizer, J&J, or AstraZeneca, there are very positive data points for a vaccine for the virus. For the economic production to be as high in the United States and globally, we will need a vaccine or something similar. Therapeutics have been better, but we really need resiliency. The speed at which this has come together is again been a positive output for consumer demand and housing, as mentioned before, but also from just an investor standpoint and the excitement about earnings acceleration. We have seen a rapid acceleration in earnings. It is very important to know when we look at the S&P 500, growth stocks, small stocks, large stocks, the company's ability to earn is what's going to drive stock price performance. The innovation that I've mentioned before is critical to acknowledge that the fact that, especially within the United States, what we've seen is a very heavy impact of both contagion and case counts. But when we look forward, also we'll look at the fact that the United States has been their ability to work, a productivity level that is higher than anticipated, with employees both scattered and in some cases smaller count of employees. So the productivity has been that much higher. That's going to accelerate earnings power as we go into 2021. It's also very important to think about the fact that there has been a growth versus value bias in the market for quite some time, but especially as we exit 2020 into 2021, if there is a movement back into some of the value-based stocks based on economic potentially explosion, exceptional growth beyond expectations, there may be a move into more cyclical industries or more value-based stocks. We will be there. There's no question that once those types of companies exhibit some earnings power and, more importantly, visibility that that power is going to continue, income and growth is aligned. Allianz Global Investors is certainly available to us to look into those industries as well. So growth has worked very, very well. We expect it to continue. We see earnings acceleration into 2021, especially with a vaccine. Now, one note of observation. It is often brought to our attention from investors that they are focused on US politics as a primary driver or fear that an election or otherwise is going to drive the market. We, on our team, would argue that 80 to 90% of the equity market volatility in 2020 was not driven by any other factor except COVID-19 and the economic challenges that it faced, or we as investors faced, when predicting earnings power. The political overlay was very noisy, it was very prominent in media, but it amounted to almost nothing as far as market goes. Our experience over time is that political influence on the market is going to have short-term inflections in sentiment, but unless there's a significant change in policy, which we won't know until well into 2021 if this new group that's going into Washington is going to have an impact or not, we know that unless there's a significant change, that political change is not nearly as impactful as economic change. So what we are urging investors to focus on is that assumably global economic rebound will come with a vaccination, a reemergence of all of the industries that have been slowed in 2020. But again, we don't need a quick uptake for those earnings accelerations to continue, because we've seen that. We saw it in the third quarter, we saw it in the second quarter, We expect to see that continue into the fourth quarter. It will remain volatile for the near term, but as we get into the spring and certainly summer of 21, the prospects could be very bright, and we might relive what we saw in the 1920s, which was considered in the United States the Roaring 20s, again in 2021.
Allianz投資